but okay. Here we go. What is up, besties? Welcome to the Phone with Friends podcast. I'm your host, Allie. I hope everyone is doing well and that everyone is staying safe. As most of a large part of what this podcast is about is pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and trying new things. That's one of the reasons why I started the whole podcast. I wanted to start checking things off my bucket list, and I was extremely excited when a bucket list coach, a real life bucket list coach, commented on one of my Instagram posts. And I'm even more excited about the fact that they are my guest this week. So I cannot wait to pick her mind about bucket list coaching. And I would love for you all to please join me in welcoming today's guest, certified bucket list coach, Tracee White. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Allie, thank you so very much for inviting me to join you. I am just so super excited that we have connected and that we're going to be spending some time together with you and your listeners. Yeah, as you said, Allie, we connected over an Insta post, all linked back to bucket listing. So isn't karma wonderful? It's just amazing. Okay, a little bit about myself. I'm an extremely proud Australian. I've always had two passions in life from a very early age, traveling and having fun. So I'm very fortunate because both of them go so really well together. A little bit about me from a working history. I basically spent 35 years of my life on what I call the corporate Ferris wheel. I was predominantly in the human resources field for a global organisation. So I had an amazing opportunity to live and work in Dubai for 8 years. And would you believe, to live and work in Charlotte, North Carolina for 2, Allie? Which is
North
right
Carolina.
where you are.
Yeah, that's oh my gosh, you got to work in Dubai for how many years?
Really fantastic opportunity.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but I have to say my favourite 2 years was actually in Charlotte. I absolutely loved my time in North Carolina. Fabulous state, absolutely amazing. So I do actually have a third passion as well, and it's probably the predominant passion I have, which leads into me being a bucket list coach. And that's a passion about supporting people to become their very best and helping them to live their life by what we call as a bucket lister, by design. So living your life by design, not by default, which is the start of the bucket lister journey. So I retired back here to Australia, 4 years ago, and became what I call a retireepreneur. I knew I was too young to, sit in a rocking chair and eat cakes and read books and, far too young. So I now live in a semi-rural town called Urunga, which in our Aboriginal native terms means land of the long white sands. I'm blessed to have beach on one side and river and mountains on the other. I have a husband of 25 years, and would you believe, as of today, our soon-to-arrive pup called Jess, who is a cross-cattle dog border collie who is actually arriving as soon as we finish this podcast.
Oh, my
so
gosh.
Very excited. Yeah, super excited. Oh. And would you believe I popped her on my bucket list 12 months ago, and it's coming to fruition. So there's the power of listing. Yes,
it's meant to be. Oh, I love this. I love everything kind of about your story, from being able to travel with your work. Again, spending 8 years in Dubai, that's amazing. And then having that opportunity to travel to North Carolina and work here for 2 months or 2 years. I've been here now for, I don't know, maybe 8 months, and I absolutely love it. Love North Carolina so far.
Yeah, it's great. It really is a beautiful state. Yeah.
And then Asheville. Yes.
Lovely.
But yeah, and then getting to retire back to Australia. I mean, Australia is on my bucket list.
Bucket list. I thought it
places
might be.
to visit. Yes, it's
Cool.
It's been at the top for quite a while, and it moves up and down a little bit based on other places I want to visit. But Australia is definitely up there. I feel like I want to do what a lot of tourists want to do when they go to Australia, which is go to Bondi Beach.
That's where I grew up.
No way.
I did. I spent my childhood there.
Oh, how amazing. I would love to hear a little bit more about, because you said you retired 4 years ago, you moved back to Australia and became a retireepreneur, which I love. Like,
so a combination between a retiree and an entrepreneur, because I still do bits and pieces like the bucket list coaching, and I do essential oils and all the sorts of things in life that I didn't have time to do before when I was working for a global organization. All the things I was passionate about but just didn't have the time, and now I do, and it's just magical. It's a fabulous time of life.
I'm really interested in learning more about how you became a bucket list coach. Was that something that you'd always had on your radar, or was there a specific moment or instance that kind of inspired you to move in that direction?
Oh, great question, Allie. Oh, look, just like our connection, it came completely from out of the blue. So when I stepped off the corporate Ferris wheel, I found that I had planned for my retirement extremely well from a financial aspect. I mean, which is lovely. But the biggest thing I found is that I'd failed to really look at the emotional side of retirement. So, I basically woke up one morning and said, gosh, I'm no longer jumping on airplanes to fly around the world to amazing places. I no longer have email inboxes that are flashing full. And I'm no longer having the mental stimulation and interactions with a diverse range of people. And that was a real wake-up call for me, Allie. As you'll hear as we get to know each other a bit better during the podcast, I'm a very positive person. And I think for the first time in my life at 58, I didn't feel positive anymore. And it was a real wake-up call. Anyway, I had kept doing some university student leadership development work through a non-for-profit organisation in the UK. And I was delivering programs for university students. And one of our guest speakers, who I had actually reached out to and I had only ever spoken to on the telephone, and he came along to give a keynote, and he was just amazing. I was sitting up on the stage in front of 500 students, having just introduced this guy. His name is Travis Bell. He's the world's #1 bucket list expert. And that was a real sort of, I call it a light bulb aha or an oh my God moment, where I watched Trav working with the students around focusing on what they wanted to achieve out of their life going forward. So again, looking at their life by design and not living it by default. And there was one particular student that had been struggling with the program. Anyway, she was courageous enough to put her hand up and share with the crowd that she was struggling. Long story short, during the break, Trav reached out to her and they must have had a conversation of about 5 minutes maximum. She came back in after that session and I started to work with the group again. And that student was just completely turned around after spending 5 minutes with Trav, who had given her 5 minutes of his quality time about the psychology of being positive about your life and everything you do. And that student just turned around and was amazing. And the rest of the program, she was incredible. So I sort of thought, oh, gosh, there's got to be something in this bucket listing. So, yeah, I contacted Trav the next day and said, hey, sign me up. I want to be a certified bucket list coach. And that was 18 months ago. And I haven't looked back.
Wow.
It's just been a pivotal point in my life. It really has turned everything around. Yeah, just amazing. And I have Trav to thank for rescuing me, if you like.
Yeah, I guess I suppose that's something that a lot of people maybe don't think about is when you do come up on retirement age and you do retire, like having those moments of, I mean, you've literally stepped away from something you've known probably for quite a while when it comes to a job, whether it's a corporate job or whatever, and you're essentially starting over in a way. So I can definitely see how that could throw you into a little bit of a I don't want to say a tailspin but yeah, like definitely kind of having to reevaluate what's going to make you happy and what's not, especially when you're traveling a lot for work and then suddenly you're not anymore.
And also, Allie, let's face it, it's the latter stage of your life. I mean, you have to be practical. You are not going to live forever. Sort of moving from the point where you retire to when you are no longer on this earth, why not make it the best time of your life? And that's certainly the great opportunity that I have had. And in the background, I think I've always been a bucket lister, but I haven't had it on fast forward. I've been doing it slowly. Now I have it on fast forward, and I'm just having the time of my life. It's just amazing. It's great.
I love it so much. I say this often on my podcast, but I might have to share like screenshots of us recording because I have the biggest smile on my face listening to you talk about it, because you do kind of like emit this like very positive, happy, just like joyful vibe coming off of you. I can tell that you're living your best life right now. So
definitely.
It's absolutely amazing. What exactly does a bucket list coach do?
Okay, so the easiest way I can explain this to your listeners is we all believe our business plans or our career plans need to fit into our life plan. We're basically told you need to go to university, you need to study, you need to have this on your plan, blah, 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 blah. And that's the way I explain it, blah, 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 blah. It should actually be the other way around. So a bucket list coach actually helps people to be more engaged in their life. We are not born to simply pay bills and die. And I love this quote from the Shawshank Redemption. I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living or get busy dying. Your choice, really. And that's what fundamentally a bucket list coach does. We help you make that choice. And believe me, it's always the living part, not the dying part.
I think that's definitely something I personally have struggled with quite a bit, which was one of the reasons why I started the podcast, because I was kind of like on the corporate hamster wheel, as most of us are, with the get up, go to work, pay the bills, go to sleep, spend money, go to work to pay more bills. And it's just, what is the point?
Yeah, and if you had joy, I think I call it a joy meter, and you were measuring between 1 and 10, how joyful all of these things make you feel, where do you think you would be measuring when 10 is absolutely joyful and 1 is feeling no joy at all?
Oh yeah, back when I had my like 9 to 5, my joy meter would have been probably at like 2. There was not much, which is why I've quit, and I'm trying to. I guess I'm trying to live the bucket list life.
You are good on you.
Hadn't really thought of it fully that way, which is kind of funny because that's what the podcast is about. But I guess I'm trying to live that bucket list life.
Definitely. No, fantastic. So that's what a bucket list coach in a bucket list life is all about. It's designing your life. Let's design it. Let's not live our life by default anymore.
Y'all have the mission to help 10 million bucket listers live purposely fulfilled lives. And I'm kind of curious, like, how is that accomplished, or how, like, what types of methods do you use to coach people through accomplishing their bucket list items?
Yeah. And isn't it an amazing, wonderful mission statement to have in life? I mean, as a bucket lister, we don't do things in small scale. We tend to do things, and Trav tells the story about when he originally was working on the mission. I think he identified 1 million bucket listers, and then he thought, no, stuff that's too small for us, has gone for 10 million, and we're all going, yes. So we currently have bucket list coaches in 22 countries worldwide, which is fantastic. And each one of them, like myself, work in their own niche or target market. So, for example, mine is mainly supporting organizations for employee well-being, employee engagement. And as I mentioned before, I also love working with university students and educational institutions. And I'm also rather passionate about supporting bucket list coach families and groups. So I'm a little bit greedy, if I can say that. The more the merrier. I just, in entrepreneurial speak, everyone says you need to have your avatar and you need to have your niche market.
Mm-hmm.
I just find helping people in this bucket list space, the niche is really what people find in you to give them value. So my niche is all of those things above. But basically, all of our coaches do exactly what I do. We run virtual workshops. We run face-to-face workshops. So we fundamentally offer two different types of programs. The first is what we call a bucket list board workshop, where we work with what we call the My Bucket List acronym. So My Bucket List has 12 letters. And as we work through these 12 letters, it's over a 2-hour face-to-face or online program. And we go through and we work through each of the letters. So as an example, what do you want to be your proudest achievement? And we talk and we get people to put pictures on their bucket list board about what it is that they want to have as their proudest achievement. The other program we offer, and this is the program which I'll be honest, I find is the most in-depth program. It's called the My Bucket List Life Plan. And it is a 12-hour in-depth dive into what we call your reverse bucket list. So we talk about and look at all of the things you've already accomplished on your bucket list that you didn't realize you had actually already done. Mm-hmm. So that creates a really positive mindset. And then we start to work on people's future bucket list. It's extremely motivational. It's a really rich reflection piece. And again, it shifts your mindset into this great space and allows you the time to step away from everything in your busy life, and you identify things on your list that you never, ever believed you would come up with. I mean, we have some really interesting things that people come up with. So fundamentally, we have the two programs. The 12-hour one, I either run over a 6-week period for 2 hours for 6 weeks, and some organisations actually run it as a lunch and learn for their staff for an hour over a 12-week period. And it's great because it gets employees out of their day-to-day normal activity. And it's a great team building exercise. Yeah. People sharing, look, I didn't know Allie wanted to jump out of a plane. I didn't realise Tracee wanted to do X, Y, Z. It's what I call the water cooler conversations that you can't have during COVID times.
I would love to do that.
Important to remember, they don't have to be big things. They can be, some people think of bucket listing or vision boarding, that there always have to be big things like buy a house or buy a car. Not at all. Some of the smallest things that people come up with are the most meaningful, and they are achieved. They should be things that are achievable, but again, go for things that stretch you as well, because that's part of the challenge, that the buzz you get from ticking something off your bucket list board is just fantastic, because you go, oh, okay, I've done that. Oh, what else am I going to do? You get worn out leading a bucket list life, believe me.
Yeah. I could definitely see when you were talking about the life plan, like looking back on your achievements in the past, I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. It's kind of taking, like you were saying, like taking that moment, looking back and going, oh, like I have done a lot. Look at all these like awesome things that I've done. Now, what's the next step to keep going and do even more now that like maybe I have more time, or like I'm ready to start living that life? So I can imagine that, like you said, it's a very kind of positive experience, taking that time to reflect.
Definitely. Yes.
How do we define pop music? Are we all chained to the rhythm? What do we expect from our artists in an era that needs all leftist hands on deck? Why does every Carly Rae Jepsen album feel like a moral necessity? What can Britney Spears' career trajectory tell us about pressure and patriarchy? Will Rihanna ever release new music and pull us through the careening emergency that is American politics once and for all? Let's talk. The B-Sides is a podcast and internet home for progressives who love pop. Subscribe today wherever you listen to get bi-weekly musings about pop's place in our world and the music you should put in your ears to fuel your reckoning with the trash fires all around us. Hosts Becky, Hannah, and Mimi dissect everything about pop, from new music releases to old, misunderstood pop news. Listen to the B-Sides on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you find podcasts today. Go to listentothebsides.com for links and more.
So I'm a little curious. So out of the 10 million bucket listers, do you know, or do you guys have like a running list of how many folks have actually accomplished their bucket list items?
That's a fantastic question, Allie. And I have to be frank and say no. Now, the reason I would say no is Trav would have a general idea and feel for the number of people that have been through the programs globally. And we're just shifting our emphasis at the moment to become a little bit more around how can we get a broader reach globally? And this is like us having this podcast today, Allie having this conversation. And some people, whilst we have a bucket listers Facebook group, some people that go through the program, I just don't use social media. So it's rather hard to keep in contact with them to see, well, you know, what they have and what they haven't achieved. But what I do with my groups that I take through, I do give them the option that I will write to them via email sort of 1 month after the program, 3 months after the program, and then 6 months after the program, just to check in, see how they're going. Because some people actually find their bucket list boards quite private and they don't want to share it with other people, which is understandable. I did actually have somebody that wanted to shift something in their life that was very personal, and they explained me, but they didn't want to share it with the rest of the group. So one of the things that I always say when I'm running it before I start to run the programs is this is a very safe environment. If you're not comfortable sharing something, by all means do not feel that you have to. But if you want to share it offline afterwards, that's absolutely fine. So long-winded way of getting back to the answer to your question. Is it necessary to say, oh, yes, we have, I don't know, already have 1 million bucket listers? That will come, but at the moment, that's not where we're coming from. It's more how can we help people change their lives without referring back to the statistic all the time. I mean, myself, I'm not a statistical person. Whilst I love the mission, and we will certainly, I'm sure, hit it, that's more of a corporate thing, and I don't want to get
success through metrics. That's
was it analysis paralysis? No.
Yeah. I'd like to get your advice for people who are in their 30s that are maybe stuck in that corporate cycle and they're looking to start living more and doing those bucket list items. What advice would you have for them? And then the second part of that question is, what advice would you have for folks that are of like retirement age that are maybe feeling a little bored, wanting to do more?
Great question, Allie. These are my personal views. I believe the answer is exactly the same for both groups. So we have a hashtag, which is called #TickItBeforeYouKickIt. So that is probably my best advice. It's the simplest way of explaining to people why you need to have a bucket list. So at the start of our programs, we put up on screen or in person a grid, and it has a certain number of boxes across the top and a certain number of boxes down the side. And we ask participants to say, where are you in your stage of life on that grid box? So on this grid box, there are 80 individual squares, and we ask people to just put an X on basically the square that represents where they are in their lifespan. And I'll share my example. I'm 62. And then if you look across the grid, there are not many boxes going forward in front of me in my life. There are far more behind me. So it's this positive anchoring of, oh, gosh, I better get off my backside and start, ticking it before you kick it and doing some good things in life. So many people had bucket lists. But you know what? Only 70% of items are ever achieved because there is no structure actually around what they have identified and how they will move to action. So through the programs, my bucket list blueprint provides that structure and we move people into action. Again, if you write things down, you are 79% more likely to achieve it than if you don't. So that would be my advice to whether it be 30-year-olds all the way up to 80, to anyone that wants to be a bucket lister. My advice would be, let's get you on a little program. Let's get you to identify what it is, write it down, and then let's move you to action. Because if you don't do all those steps, it's just going to be an item on your bucket list. You know, and when it comes back into your thought process, you'll go, oh, yes, I remember when, but no, put it down, record it, and move to action.
Like an example, I guess, if, like you're saying, one of my bucket list items is to travel to Australia.
Yes.
To specifically visit Bondi Beach, amongst other places. With the program, through like the bucket list blueprint, like something you could assist me with would be figuring out what steps I need to take, or like putting together like a timeline or something of that sort that would help me actually check that item off. Or could you give an example of kind of like how we would work through that?
Sure, absolutely, Allie. So travel event, and isn't it interesting when you talk about bucket listing, everybody normally immediately associates travel as bucket listing.
Yeah.
Believe me, the other 11 letters besides T, which happens to be the T in list, the last letter, are far more exciting than the travel ones actually. But if we were working through yours, Allie, so during the workshop, I would get you to pull out a photograph of Bondi Beach, put it in the square for T for travel adventures, and we would talk through, okay, what do you need to do to make this happen? And you may say to me, okay, I need to save financially for the next 2 years. I need to know how much money I will need, and I need to plan where I want to go and how long I want to be there for. And that's the high level steps that you then step away and will work on that plan to do. Whereas normally if someone's bucket listing or vision boarding, they'll just put the photograph up there and go, oh, that looks good. Yes, I want to go to Bondi Beach eventually. But how are you going to get there, Allie? You're just going to look at that box every day and pine and say, oh, one day, maybe. So again, this comes back to the designing your life piece. You've got all the answers up here in your mind and your heart. You know how to get there, but you need to write it down so that's front of your thoughts on a regular basis. Again, the power of positive thinking.
Yeah, I love it. I'm like, yes, let's go to Bondi Beach.
We were laughing before, Allie. Isn't that hilarious? I grew up on Bondi Beach. This is so funny.
I was like, all the synchronicities, you know, it's like you lived in North Carolina, connecting through Instagram, like all of it. I'm like, it's meant to be.
It is, definitely.
I'm curious. So you kind of already touched on it with my travel question. So travel is obviously, for me, it's a big thing because I've not been able to do a lot of traveling, especially internationally. But what are some of the other kind of common bucket list items that you've seen so far?
Oh gosh, we get such varied and interesting ones. Oh gosh. Look, some people will tend to go for the big ticket items, become mortgage free. That's one that's coming through more and more regularly given the times we're living in at the moment. People will say, buy my first house. A lovely one is propose to my partner.
Oh,
yes, that one always gets the hearts. The other T in the My Bucket List blueprint is for T for take lessons. And do you think you can guess what the most popular lesson is that most people want to take? And this is globally, not just in Australia. Can you have a guess what it would be?
Guitar lessons?
Very close, Allie. I'll give you 9 out of 10 for that. It's actually, and I laugh at this every time, it's learn how to play a ukulele.
Oh, that's immediately what I thought of after I said guitars, like, or the ukulele.
All right, I'll give you 9 points.
I can definitely, I can see that. I can see that.
fun one. I've had a couple of ladies want to design a dress. Another common one is learn how to scuba dive. And there is always an all-time favourite, and I don't think I've ever run a workshop that this one hasn't come up on somebody's board. Someone always wants to tattoo. That's a very common one.
Really?
Yeah. And I think you may be going to ask this question of me, but I'll jump in here and say, what is the one thing I've always wanted to do as a bucket lister? And guess what it is? It's actually to get a tattoo.
Yes.
And the thing that stops me, there are two things that stop me. One, I'm procrastinating over what I want to have as the design. So I use it as a stalling tactic. But the number one factor, of course, is the pain factor. I have a low threshold for pain. So I have to become very brave, but I will do it. I mean, bucket listers don't shirk away.
You have to.
And I will share it with you as soon as I have it done.
Please do. Yes, I'm like, tattoos. I can talk about tattoos all day.
Super.
But you have to get your first one somewhere where it doesn't hurt so bad.
Exactly. Yeah. But as you can see, that look, there's such a wide range of what people want to do. A lot of, if I run a couples group, workshop, it's normally about supporting each other in their relationships. It's really interesting where these items can lead people and the things that it earths that you didn't realize you actually wanted to do. So that's why I love what I do. It's unpicking things that people already have within inside them. It's just me opening a little lock that allows them to express themselves and to actually move to action.
Yeah, I bet it's kind of interesting too, getting a peek into the human brain in a way, or like the human psyche, because it's like some of the things you mentioned, I was like, I like getting a tattoo. Like I was like, that seems like so normal to me because I have tattoos. But for someone else, it may not be, and it's a bucket list item. So that difference in, not importance, but like what people deem like bucket list life items is really interesting to me.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the funny things is I had put down on my bucket list board again about 12 months ago, wanting to become a podcast guest. And here I am.
That's so awesome. Yes.
Yeah, it's down and it will happen.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to put it out into the universe.
Exactly.
I love it. Yeah, I was definitely curious about what you had on your bucket list, which tattoos, and you also mentioned being a podcast guest as one of the other items. But I would love to know.
Getting
getting 2 guinea pigs on my bucket list.
Oh, cute.
I want to be like a little guinea pig parent.
That sounds wonderful.
But I'm curious about what bucket list items that you've checked off.
So one of the smaller ones, but actually it was quite big at the time. I have never been a runner. I can walk and walk all day long, but if anyone mentions the word run or jog, I will be the person going in the opposite direction. I recognize my limitations. So funnily enough, when I was in Charlotte, a friend of mine, we put our hand up and we went into the 5K Colour Frenzy run at what's the raceway there, the bit where they do the NASCAR races.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. I can't remember.
It was a hoot. It was so much fun. I'll be very honest. I ran about a quarter of 5Ks and the rest I just walked. But it was so much fun. And it was something I always wanted to do. We go in this colour frenzy thing and do something around 5K. So that got ticked off. A couple of weeks ago, we have a very small little local winery near us, and I've always wanted to harvest a wine crop for some reason. I do have a passion for wine, and I rang up the owners and said, would you mind when you're harvesting if I could come along and give you a hand? And they were delighted. They were over the moon. It was like, oh, yes, please. So I can proudly say when this crop is turned into wine, I'll be saying, well, I actually harvested this crop of wine, and this is the bottle.
That's awesome.
Cool,
those are like such great memories too. So like,
it is.
Like I've done that.
And I suppose the other one that has really impacted on my life, which I just Was so thankful. I was in London a few years ago and I had the opportunity to see Dame Judi Dench perform in a play in London.
No.
I was over the moon. And then as I was leaving, for some reason, I walked down the side lane and had no idea that the actual staff door would open and who would walk out, but it was Dame Judi Dench to get into her car. And she smiled at me. And it's what? You cannot put a price on that memory. Every time I shut my eyes, I can still see her, that wry smile. It was just amazing. So
you saw the Dame. Oh.
The Dame. She's amazing. And she's so tiny. You don't realize how small she is. She's just incredible.
You've had so many like amazing life experiences. It brings me a lot of joy. Again, I've got like the biggest, cheesiest grin on my face right now because it brings me just so much joy listening to you talk about your bucket list items, your like the things that you've been able to do, and it's just. I don't know. It's kind of like hopeful. We can do this. Everyone can do this. We just have to start.
Particularly in these times, Allie. It's very easy we're all concerned. And one of the things I have and feel very strongly about is there's enough negativity in the world. Let's just try and focus on one or two things that will bring us joy and positivity. We can all do it, even if it's just if you're in lockdown. If you have a window, there's a website where you take a photo from the window and you describe what your world is all about. I can't remember the name of it, but wow. I think you can find a lot of solace in storytelling as well. We all have amazing stories to tell. So cool. Sorry, I'm wandering off track there.
No, I love it. And I think the great thing about kind of social media has its pros and its cons, but like the great thing about being in kind of the internet age, I suppose, is having the ability to learn at your fingertips. So if you do want to learn like a new language or learn to play the ukulele, luckily you can do that all virtually if you want to. So even though like you may not be able to do, again, I always go to travel, like you may not be able to do the things that require you to get out during like right now, you can still do quite a bit online when it comes to checking bucket list items off, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah. Look, I have a lady that went to one of my workshops and she's in lockdown and she's struggling and she came up with journaling and it's made a huge difference for her. And she kept saying, I've always wanted to. And my question back to her was, what's stopping you? And she put it on her bucket list and she started and it's made such a difference for her. Sometimes it just takes that one question to lock what you already know. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. No, it's been just absolutely amazing speaking with you today about, I don't know, like this conversation has really pumped me up. I'm like, yes, let's go out there. Let's start doing stuff. Let's check items off our bucket list, live life to the fullest. Because like you said, take it before you kick it.
Yep, kick it before you kick it.
It has been just such a joy speaking with you today, Tracee. I've really enjoyed getting to know more about bucket list coaching, which again, prior to you reaching out to me on Instagram, did not even know existed. So this has been great.
Fabulous.
I'm excited to share this information. I think a lot of people will find it really helpful, especially in the times that we're living in right now. So where can folks find you on social media, or is there a website where they can find you at?
Absolutely, Allie. So probably the easiest way to find me is using my email, which is Tracee, Tracee, at bucketlistcoach.com, or you can go onto my website, which is www.bucketlistcoach.com /Tracee, Tracee-White, WHITE. And Allie, I would love to hear from any of your listeners. DM me or whatever works. Reach out and contact me. More than happy to connect and have a chat with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, I will include Tracee's contact information and her social media and website in the episode description below. So yeah, if you do have questions for her, you'll definitely be able to find her quite easily. Tracee and I will also be doing an Instagram live. So keep an eye out on the Fun with Friends social media for the date and the time for that. And that'll be your opportunity to come in onto the Instagram Live. Tracee will be right there so you can ask questions. So again, keep an eye out for that. Tracee, again, I want to thank you so much for being on today. It's been absolutely wonderful speaking with you.
Oh, thank you, Allie. It's just our contact points are just amazing. I'm blown away. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great session.
And for everyone out there, remember to get out there, try something new, and have some fun. Goodbye.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the Fun with Friends podcast on social media. We are on Instagram at Fun with Friends Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at FunFriendsPod1. You can also reach me by email at funfriendspodcast@gmail.com. And you can go to my website, cootscreations.com, for some fun little extras from the podcast. So definitely head over there and check it out. And as always, remember to get out there, try something new, and have some fun. Goodbye.